But over the last 2 to 3 years, we are seeing luxury hotels prop up in religious locations. But this one milestone birthday that I saw on social media was completely unique. It was a bunch of people who went to Varanasi and booked themselves in an ultra luxury hotel. Everyone was dressed Indian. All the events were Indian.
These hotels don't have any alcohol, don't have any meat. They're vegetarian and they're no alcohol hotels.
Now that I want to spend money, I will spend more money on experiences. We are more expressive as a nation. We're very proud of where we are today in the world stage. When you have a luxury property with the cultural heritage of India, lots more Instagrammable. I think we're expressing ourselves a lot more, and these hotels provide a great platform to express yourself. India's got some amazing tourist destinations, be it the coastal belts, right from Goa to Kerala, the sands and the castles of Jaipur, the wonderful forests of Ranthambore or Bandhavgarh. And in all these destinations, there are some amazing hotels, luxury and ultra luxury hotels. But over the last 2 to 3 years, we are seeing luxury hotels prop up in religious locations, in Varanasi, in Ayodhya, in Tirupati. What's driving this? Welcome to I'm Blown, a podcast where Atul and I try and take these trends and see what's driving this and what's behind these kind of trends.
Yeah, let's get into it, Siddarth. I think it's fascinating how the hotel industry has developed in the last 3-4 decades in India. It's also very interesting how Indian chains have done really, really well, whether it's Taj or Oberoi or the Leela, and in fact ITC as well. Like you were mentioning a little while back, a lot of the development has happened in the classic touristy destinations, which is beaches, which is the more ethnic places, and of course the jungles of India. Another massive space, and I'm just trying to build the growth of ultra and luxury hotels in India. Another massive space that has given the fillip to this business is weddings. Weddings have become have always been a massive thing, and infrastructure was always a challenge, and hotels all over India are now capable of handling, especially the luxury ones, of handling great destination weddings. So that infrastructure has developed, and luxury hotels are all over the place, whether it's the Taj chains all over Rajasthan, or of course the Goa hotels. So that's another big factor in the development of these hotels.
Yeah, I mean, you in these places like Rajasthan and Kerala, when you go and try and book a room in some of these luxury hotels, there are wedding packages.
Absolutely.
So yeah, destination weddings is really driving it. And clearly these are places that people go for tourism. But now these same hotel chains are setting up luxury properties in some of these religious places. And what I want to sort of discuss and get into are these properties still driven by religion and religious journeys, or is there something more at play? Let's start with, what do you think is happening out there?
I think, whether we like it or not, because of the political economy, religion has become more center stage in the last, I'm going to say maybe 15 years, 20 years or so. And because of that, religious fervor has become a lot more central. And we won't get into the political side of that, obviously. But because of that, a lot more people at every income level are doing religious tourism in the first place. Which was always the case in India. But with income levels going up and people being able to move around, the infrastructure, roads have developed so much more in the last couple of decades, last decade especially in India, that a lot more religious tourism is happening. Now, when that's going to happen, it's almost inevitable that will happen at multiple income levels.
Correct.
And at the highest income level, the driver is sometimes religion, and sometimes it's not. And I'd love for you to tell us that story of, that we were talking about earlier, where maybe religion was not the center stage, but yet it was a great central point of the hotel and what we were talking about.
So our generation, we are crossing milestones.
Absolutely.
Some of us have crossed 40, some of us have crossed 50. And milestone birthdays was a thing. I didn't do one, but a lot of my friends did them.
Right.
And milestone birthdays happened in Goa. Some people did in Prague, in different places.
Absolutely, yeah.
But this one milestone birthday that I saw on social media was completely unique. It was a bunch of people who went to Varanasi and booked themselves in an ultra luxury hotel in Varanasi and celebrated with real cultural fervor. Everyone was dressed Indian. All the functions were Indian. All the events were Indian. The music was Indian. It was pure cultural and identity being thrown out during those festivals.
Amazing. So ethnicity, more ethnicity than hardcore religion.
Yes.
Though religion, the religiosity of it was central to that extent, and the hotels we're talking about obviously build in experience beyond simply the hotel itself and the amenities itself. And as you and I were talking about that, a lot of that experience is related to access. So if it's Varanasi, not only do you stay in a hotel which is maybe on the river, on the Ganges, and you've got a great view and you can see the Aarti through your bedroom window, but you also have access directly onto the water to go for the Aarti or the boat ride on the Ganges and all that, which is an incredible experience, I'm told. I've never done it. I've never even been to Varanasi, which is a bit crazy, but anyway. So that experience extended into access is a great driver, and I can see that happening a lot in many, many more religious towns all over India now.
Yeah, you said two things, experience and access. So let's open up access.
Yes.
I've been to Varanasi and I've been to many temple towns in Kerala. I mean, getting in and out of those, locations is quite a nightmare. I mean, you have to do it, spend about 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 hours just waiting in lines.
Wow.
But I think the fact that you're spending so much money in these luxury hotels, like you said, gives you access. You need to spend far lesser time. You get the best boat in the river, viewing the Aarti. So access is definitely at play, and people who can afford it get better access. It cuts short their time of entering these places, or for that matter, it gives them the best visual of something like an Aarti. So access is definitely at play here.
And what's interesting is that some of this is happening despite some so-called restrictions. For example, these hotels don't have any alcohol, don't have any meat. They're vegetarian, and they're no alcohol hotels. And despite that, they work. I mean, like you were talking about a milestone celebration. Imagine a milestone celebration without those two things. Obviously, you can go maybe somewhere else in the city and celebrate in that sense. But that's amazing that, despite these things are coming, these hotels are coming up and coming through.
Yeah. So I think there's also a case, let's go back. So access we discussed, and the fact that, people are going to these places sans some of the luxuries that they would have afforded themselves. But the experience bit now, and that's true. I think in India, at least at the higher income level, people are seeking unique experiences. And these locations become unique experiences for them. So as against a milestone birthday in Goa, which is through the beaches, through the shacks, here's a very unique experience to celebrate your birthday. So these ultra luxury or the luxury hotels do provide a unique experience, which we are seeking for. And of course, with social media and your ability to express yourself through social media, it becomes almost performative in many ways. Aspect of celebrating your birthday.
Another facet that I found interesting while I was kind of researching this space, Sid, was that a lot of the first steps in many of these places are being taken by the Indian hotel chains. Whether it's the Oberoi, whether it's Taj, whether it's Leela, a lot of the luxury hotels are in this space. Not really the international chains, and that's maybe because they understand the market better. Maybe that works in their favor, potentially. Also, I'm finding that there are multiple tiers. Like there are certain cities like a Varanasi, for example, or an Amritsar, which is attracting a lot more. There are a lot more in a second tier, which is an Ayodhya, which is frankly opened up relatively recently as a religious center, or maybe Tirupati or a few others. Actually, the headroom is very large. I mean, the number of religious centers in India is just amazing. And there could be potential for many, many more hotels in these places.
I spoke to someone who's in the sort of real estate space, and he said a lot of investments are going into creating hotel properties in some of these sites. Ayodhya we know of. Tirupati. I can tell you a bunch of them in Kerala that need that kind of
Even Tamil
infrastructure.
Nadu.
Even
Tamil Nadu has so many temple towns
Yeah.
that could attract this kind of investment.
It's an interesting point that you made about the Indian,
Hotel
hotels
chains.
are doing really well. Part of that is, I'm sure they are well invested and they've got
Right.
lots of money to do it. And some of the foreign ones like the Marriotts and the Sheratons and the of the world are not opening up. Or for that matter, even if they open up, my sense is if I'm going to Varanasi and I want a truly ethnic, cultural immersion and a luxury one at that, I will tend to choose a Taj over a Marriott. I would tend to choose because, and this comes from an example of us trying to sell yogurt. Our name was Epigamia. I know it's digressing, yogurt.
Yeah.
in
I
hotels,
hear you.
But our name was Epigamia.
Yeah.
And we truly thought our best flavor we've launched is a khatta meeta, an imli chutney. Right? There were phenomenal flavors, truly rooted in India. But guess what? It did not sell. Because one of the reasons that we found out was not because of the taste, but when someone looks at our pack and sees a truly modern looking young pack,
Right.
and trying to sell something so traditional, there's a bit of dissonance.
Yeah.
And I sense there will be some dissonance in trying to
Sure.
get a cultural immersion in an international hotel.
I think they'll have to work much harder. An international chain would probably have to work much harder to make that connection.
Much harder. What else is at play? You mentioned something about identity, right? And the fact that we're all trying to express our identity far more,
Yeah.
right? And you think that's driving greater religious tourism? Of course, maybe. But in doing that, then, living in a luxury hotel and expressing yourself that way, is identity or enforcing your identity also at play here?
I think there are two sides to that. One is, I do believe that there is a lot more expression of identity, religious identity in India now. And I think that is definitely in play, in my opinion. But that's not always outward expression. It's sometimes expression for yourself, right? So while a generation above us would have been doing it even in their time, in their own way. But I think it's a lot more, and I'll connect it with another piece of information I found very interesting, though not necessarily in the religious towns, but in most other very luxury hotels. What's interesting is that a lot of the traffic, a lot of the occupancy is not driven by foreign tourists.
Yes.
It's driven by HNIs of India. And most of it is what I would call new money. A lot of startup kind of money, a lot of IT earnings. A lot of the new Indians are spending big with luxury hotels all over the country, not just the religious. I think that is getting supplanted here as well. Because today you have the money to spend, and religion is one way of expressing it. And I don't necessarily mean religion in terms of rituals and things like that, but an expression to yourself that, I want to be at the Aarti in Varanasi or in Rishikesh or whatever. So I think that's definitely in play here.
Yeah. I think there is, and when I speak to generations right from the young to the old, there is this proud to be Indian at this point in time. Our economy, our stability, our history. There's a lot to be proud about, and of course, whether it's right or wrong, but there's a lot to be proud about.
Absolutely.
And I think one way of sort of expressing that pride is to go to these places, right? And like you said, if I have a lot of money, I also want to sort of be in locations that afford me access, experience, and so on and so forth. So there is a need to go to some of these places.
A thought just struck me, which is true. I know it's true for Goa. Did COVID have a role to play in this? When Indians couldn't travel abroad, they were traveling within India, right? So Goa saw a massive spike, as we know, during COVID. But during that time, I'm sure local Indian tourism, domestic tourism must have got a major fillip in other cities and towns as well.
One of the things that I think COVID did is, whether it's subconscious or even very conscious, is to really enjoy experiences a lot more. I think we were all bottled up in many ways.
Definitely. The value of experiences
went up. Now that I want to spend money, I will spend more money on experiences than, a ultra luxury car for that matter.
Absolutely.
Right? So therefore, if I'm going to Varanasi in the past, I would have stayed in a normal hotel, done my 1 or 2 days of darshan, and then headed back. But now I'm happy to spend 4-5 days in Varanasi, where it's some degree of devotion and sacrifice and so on and so forth. But I also want to spend
That's
a couple
very
of
good
days
point.
and I really want to enjoy.
There's a click in the head on this one now.
There was some
switch.
switch.
There's a
And
switch.
there are enough research that's happening that the younger people are valuing experiences more
So true.
than something so
true.
physical in that sense.
Assets.
So there was a switch, I think, and people are happy to spend that money more. And that leads to some of these locations, like a Rishikesh, for example, which is known to be a religious place, also having yoga retreats. And so it's a retreat. You're not really going there for that. You might be going there for the art.
And river rafting.
But
my
also-
favorite thing to
and-
do in Rishikesh.
Absolutely. I've never done it.
Yeah.
But it sounds really exciting.
It's
to do that.
amazing, yeah. It
So
really
there
is.
could be the switch of wanting to also add an experience while you sort of go and do your artis and darshans in those locations.
You make some really, really good points, Sid, and I think we should just recap and see what all the ground we've covered. I think a lot of luxury hotels are coming up all over India, but specifically in religious centers. Varanasi is already a great example. Rishikesh is already a great example, and I think it's going to only increase over time. A lot of the Indian chains are kind of seem to be taking the front foot on this one. What else did we kind of?
For me, the one point on identity holds good. I think there is we are more expressive as a nation. We're very proud of where we are today in the world stage. And we want to express ourselves in many forms. And with social media, we're able to do that. When you have a luxury property with the cultural heritage of India.
A lot more Instagrammable as well.
Lots more Instagrammable. I think we're expressing ourselves a lot more, and these hotels provide a great platform to express yourself. So identity is definitely one. I think the point you made, access, is great. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think, I'm going to take it with, I'm going to talk about experience first, because access kind of comes out of that. Experience, as we were talking about, for the new generation, as well as for those of us who were kind of cooped up in their homes in COVID, the importance of experience has really become a top priority. And as a result, we're looking beyond simply, buying assets or even going to hotels. The experience of the hotel is that much more important. From that comes access, which in a lot of the temple towns or religious centers becomes even more important, because obviously the population is what it is, and it's a limited access. So if you're spending a lot more on a luxury property, you get access in terms of, in the case of Varanasi, the boat ride, etc. But whether it's other religious centers, access to a temple or a location or whatever. So all of those things kind of pile on top of the experience.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I still remember my time as a kid living in those so-called guest houses, and now there are so many more options available in these towns. So I'm going to go visit a few of them and hopefully experience what we discussed today. But fascinating conversation again. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do drop in your comments and let us know if you missed anything or is another point that you want us to cover in future episodes. But we look forward to seeing you in another episode a week from now.
We'll be back. See you soon.
See you soon.